Hello everybody, I am Creeper and today I'm back with another Torchwood video. We've finished Series 2, I shed a little bit of a tear at the end of Exit Wounds last week, but we're here today to rank every single episode, all 13 of them, in Torchwood Series 2, worst to best, before we start Children of Earth. Is it next week or the week after? I'm not sure, but here we are. We're talking about Torchwood Series 2 today. We're not thinking about Children of Earth, but that is very, very soon, and you should be excited. So we're going to rank all the episodes from worst to best. It is worth noting there are 13 different entries on this list, obviously because there's 13 episodes, and there's millions of different combinations you can put these 13 episodes in from worst to best. So the chances are you're probably going to disagree with me, and that's perfectly fine. That is perfectly fine. Don't you worry about it. But instead of putting something nasty like a sort of a hate comment towards me for disagreeing with you, why instead don't you tell me your list from worst to best, or your top 5 favourite, or your worst and your best? Just let me know. I'm interested to see what other people think, because I kind of struggled with this one. Almost every episode in this series is brilliant, but you know, they had to be put in a certain order, so that's what we've done. Anyway, let's get going. Number 13. Resets. Now, this is probably an unpopular one, I think, but I think if you saw my reaction to this one, you'd probably understand. I just found this episode boring. I think Martha is a fantastic addition, a fantastic idea to bring Martha into Torchwood. I love it, and I welcome that idea so much. But an episode should be good without Martha, you know? The episode, if you remove Martha from this episode and replace everything Martha does with another Torchwood member, the episode should be a good episode, and then Martha is just a nice little bonus. Martha shouldn't have to carry the episode. So yes, it's brilliant that Martha's in it, but I can see through that. And below that, I just see a pointless, boring story that is really only used for the surprise twist at the end where Owen gets shot, which obviously doesn't really lead to much other than, you know, the next 2 episodes dwelling on the fact that he can't die. You know, that sort of thing. I like that, and I like the big surprise at the end, but I can't merit an episode on Martha returning and, you know, a big surprise twist in the last minute of the episode, you know? There's still another, like, 40 minutes there, which is just meh. And for Torchwood Series 2, the average of standard and quality is always pretty high, and I feel like Reset really did disappoint me. I was really looking forward to it, and, you know, Martha is in other episodes, so the other episodes with her in are better, so I can't really say this is great. Number 12, episode 3, To the Last Man. Yeah, I didn't really like this one, to be honest with you. Again, it's one of those things where the standard is so high for Series 2 that this in Series 1 probably would have been in the top half of episodes. But in Series 2, it is undoubtedly where it belongs, near the bottom of the list. It is just not that good. I mean, it's a clever concept. I like the idea of the concept. The concept itself is actually really good and brilliant and wonderful, whatever. I just don't feel anything, especially when it's trying to set up some sort of relationship or suggestion of a relationship between Tosh and Owen. It was really weird to suddenly have that twist of, oh, Tosh has been shagging this guy all the time. What? She's been meeting this guy once every year and getting to know him and loving him and all that sort of thing, and she clearly loves him, but then it's like, that's just forgotten about for the next couple of episodes. At least when Owen fell in love with someone from the past in the previous series, that was a big part of his character, and he still remembered that, like, all the way through the last half of Series 1. That made sense, but Tosh just kind of forget about this guy, to the point where you could remove this episode entirely and it would have absolutely no consequences on the rest of the series, at least as far as I'm aware. I just don't think it's that impressive or that good, really. It's fine. It's a solid story. I'll probably never watch it again because it was just a bit dull for me. But yeah, it was fine. Number 11, So Much Promise, episode 10 from Out of the Rain. Yeah, it was good, and it had some fantastic imagery, and I think that's probably the one thing I do want to point out, is that this episode did kind of haunt me a little bit creepy, you know? The imagery of the man reaching out of the screen and welcoming you in, that was really weird. The use of film reel, that was really clever. There's a lot of different elements that I actually really did like about this story, but then the execution was just really weird and odd, and this felt more like a Sarah Jane Adventures episode than a Torchwood episode, if you know what I mean. It was very light for what it actually could have been. It could have really delved into a darker, like more terrifying theme. This could have been a fantastic horror episode of Torchwood, but we never quite got that. It was just kind of, it could have got, it was kind of creepy, but it could have went full on, opposed to just being, because then it has the same qualities of like, Bradley Walsh dressed up in clown makeup in Sarah Jane Adventures. It's like, yeah, it's creepy, but it's creepy to the point where that is still Bradley Walsh, So it's like, it's creepy, but it's still funny as well. You can still laugh at it, and there's not really many redeeming qualities, especially, again, comparing this episode to the rest of Series 2, it just doesn't really stick out very highly. Number 10, Episode 4, Meat. A bit of a weird one. Like, I really like this episode, but again, it's like... So, again, as I always do with these lists ranking things, and, new viewers might not be aware of this, but I use a thing called Preference Revealer, which, again, I try to link it if people ask, but you can find it online just by searching Preference Revealer. It's a thing where you I'll put in every episode of Torchwood Series 2, and then it'll compare one episode to another episode, which one's better. You pick the better one every time, and then it automatically builds your list, and then I kind of swap a couple if I really do strongly disagree with where those placements are. But this is one of those ones where, yeah, it's a good episode, but it's just, nah, it's like, it's not as good as any of the other ones, it's no better than any of the other ones in this series, I don't think, anyway. It's just kind of flat and basic and kind of one note, really, when it could have been really different and wonderful. I actually really like the suspense of them walking through the factory and like the confrontation of actual humans opposed to, again, like giant alien space monster. I did like the fact that it was actually, the alien wasn't the issue, it was the humans using it, and you did actually kind of feel for the creature despite it just being a big CGI blob from 2008. Despite that, it did actually, feel quite convincing. You had a couple of emotional moments in there, and I actually did quite appreciate that as well. But yeah, again, like nothing amazing and over the top. I did like the whole thing about Rhys knowing about Torchwood though. I was thinking about time. Like I was really waiting for that moment, and I was glad to see it in this episode, and I'm glad to see that he didn't get his mind wiped. That was quite nice. So yeah, it's good. Number 9, Dead Man Walking, episode 7. Again, like a solid episode. It works. It's fine. The thing about this episode is it's very much the same to episode 8. It's about Owen exploring his newfound power of not really being able to die because he's already dead. So he can die, he can injure himself, but he doesn't heal. He can't drink, he can't do anything, he can't have sex, anything. He's just a standard dead man who's just walking about, which, as the episode describes, yeah, that is exactly what it is. But it does do very much the same thing of episode 8. It explores that. But episode 8 was so much more... It was so much deeper and so much more... It was filled with meaning and promise, and genuinely it was much more enjoyable as an episode, and it was much deeper and it was much more emotional. That I really, really loved episode 8, and then you look back at episode 7 and you're like, yeah, it was good, but he fights a big CGI monster and then just doesn't really do anything. He just kind of holds its hand, spins around with it in a weird CGI way, and then kneels down, and that's it. There's no exploration to the deeper level of how he feels. We just go straight into a weird possessed demon story, which is alright and worked when I was watching it. It was much better than Reset. It was a big step up, but it wasn't as big of a step up as episode 7 to episode 8, which was a massive increase in quality. So yeah, it's two very similar episodes really in terms of plot thread, but I feel like episode 8 does it better. Number 8, episode 5, Adam. A lot of people will kill me for putting this one this low on the list. Adam is a good episode, don't get me wrong. This is where we're on the list where all the episodes are good and solid and great, but just on... I enjoy the other ones more, and it's a weird mix of like... I'm not saying this is bad, I'm saying it's good, but it's not as good as the other ones that I really, really like. So... yeah, no, I kind of like Adam. It's a good, solid story, and I love the concept of it. I love the introduction of the episode of them just like not really... everything's suddenly changed, and like Gwen asked a question why, and then her mind gets changed, and all that sort of stuff, and it explores that on a deeper level. Not just that, but we get to see some of Captain Jack's history as well, which, again, on reflection and the knowledge of what happens in the finale, it didn't really work as well for me because... it didn't really go anywhere, the whole story about is it Gray, I think his name is, like his brother, and it's like it was such an anticlimax towards the end of the series that I look back on this episode and go, yeah, it was cool to learn that at the time, and it was cool to see Jack's childhood, but yeah, it didn't really go anywhere, and actually I would have preferred to have a more action-packed episode with the concept of Adam just being able to change people's minds. That was really interesting. I love seeing what he did to Ianto, and that was really interesting, and I kind of wish they'd done something a little bit more and a little bit more in depth with that. But it was a solid episode, it worked, it was good, it was enjoyable, I'd watch it again, but I wish it was slightly better. Number 7, episode 2, Sleeper, another fantastic episode here. Kiss Kiss Bang Bang was a fantastic start to the series, and I was kind of thinking, how can this get better? And this wasn't better, but it was on the same lines. Like, it was solid, it was action-packed, it was, again, a massive step up. If this was in Series 1, this would be the best episode in Series 1, because it blew everything out of the park. It felt totally right for the time. The humanity of it, the emotion of it was perfect and, bang on. It wasn't too silly or wacky or weird, it was enjoyable, it is hard to describe really, but it was a really nice Earth-scale kind of event almost. That was actually kind of really well handled in the context of the show. It felt bigger budget, it felt more exciting, it felt more, I don't know, it just felt brilliant, and it was a great episode. And then I can't justify why it's halfway down the list, because it just was great, but it wasn't as great as some of the ones higher on the list. Number 6, episode 9, Something Borrowed. I love this episode, I really do, but not. This is the thing, is like, this episode has no emotional depth. No emotional depth or, consequence or anything like that. This episode is the one that I could probably rewatch the most of Torchwood, because it is so wacky, weird, wonderful. It is just so mental that I love it. I think it's such a nice... It was a nice relief, to be honest with you, because this was... Ignoring From Out of the Rain, this came between The Day and the Death and Adrift. Two really depressing, emotional, weight-filled stories. Episode 9, Something Borrowed. Something Borrowed was just a laugh, a bit of fun, wacky, weird aliens, and a really wacky, weird concept, and a great way of doing the wedding in Torchwood. Because they could have done it a bit like Series 5 of Doctor Who, where it's like the finale and right at the end they get married, and that's a happy way to end the series. But I love the fact that this was just a totally mental, wacky adventure, and I absolutely love the way they handled it, the way they did it. It's just a lot of fun, a lot of laughs, and actually quite a few emotional, weird moments. The only downsides for me are the suggestions of Gwen having some sort of thing for Jack. Like, don't explore that. It never went anywhere, so don't explore it. Number 5, episode 12, Fragments. Seeing all of the Torchwood guys' history was incredible. I love seeing the backstory of Captain Jack. Finally, I love seeing how Tosh got into Torchwood. I love seeing, Owen's backstory as well. Owen being, kind of retconned to be exactly who he was. It wasn't a massive jump up, and that's probably what the one downside I do have with it, is that a lot of the characters do feel a bit odd in the flashbacks, because these flashbacks clearly weren't thought of when they started Series 1. Like, for example, Ianto had a connection with Captain Jack straight away, but when Cyberwoman happens, he kind of hates Jack and kind of insinuates that he always hated Jack. And in the flashbacks with Ianto, like, he spends about a week or two trying to convince Jack to give him a job at Torchwood 3. So where is his cyber girlfriend at this point? Where's Lisa? Where's the big cyber conversion chamber? Like, where is it? Where is he hiding that to eventually bring it into Torchwood? But what? It makes no sense. It would be different if he got, like, moved there or something. But for the story of Fragments, it works perfectly fine. But looking in the greater context, Fragments does bring up a few issues with Torchwood lore as a whole. Even if I don't mind it altogether, it's fine. But it's still a bit weird. It was great to see some of the history of the guys, and it was actually a really interesting way of telling the story. I think it was actually really well done and solid and enjoyable and brilliant, but I still think it does creep up a few errors, and for that I don't really want to put it any higher on the list. Number 4, episode 8, A Day in the Death. A very depressing episode, a depressing and emotional episode which really contemplate, I mean, if you're watching this, you have to have a strong kind of spirit, because, oh my god, it makes you kind of question the meaning of life, like death, and what happens after death, and it's kind of existential a little bit, and that actually is a really hard concept to pick up for TV and actually do really well, especially in something connected to Doctor Who. Like, it's meant to be Doctor Who's a kids show, really. Its primary audience is children. It always has been. But when you're picking up something like Torchwood, which is slightly more adult, this is the kind of thing I was really hoping for. Something really more emotional and I don't know how to describe it again, like with a lot of these episodes. This is just a fantastic episode. It's emotional, it's deep, it's almost existential, as I've said, and it's actually kind of depressing to watch. It's not a one that you can sit back with a bucket of popcorn and just go, yeah, this is great. It's one that you can watch once and then maybe a couple of more times in the future, but just kind of think about. It's one of those ones that just you think about more than anything, even if it is a really solid story. Number 3, episode 11, Adrift. Oh my god, this includes probably the scariest or most traumatizing scene I've seen in the whole of Torchwood, without a doubt. Without a doubt. The man screaming, Jonah screaming for 20 hours. Yeah, I did laugh at first. I let out a little chuckle when I was reacting to this episode, but that image after the episode, for the week or two after, that image always kept creeping into my head and it always freaked me out. Like, it was actually kind of a traumatizing image. The man is so traumatized himself that his condition is just to scream for like 20 hours a day. That's insane. That is insane. And I really don't know how I felt about Adrift until that point. I loved it now. I do, and I look back and I go, this is actually fantastic. It's a fantastic bit of television and exactly what Torchwood should have been going for all the way from Series 1. Dark stories like this are really interesting to tell. You know, not only is it dark and emotional, but it's human. There's not a big weird alien threat, it's just the Rift doing the opposite of what it usually does, picking people up instead of dropping people off. The fact that Captain Jack was helping but keeping it secret as a kind of conspiracy thing, and the idea of grief from a mother was actually a really weird and interesting concept that I never thought Torchwood would explore, but did anyway. And you can kind of see the correlations of like Broadchurch a little bit as well, with the whole grieving mother thing, and that was really well done. Ruth Jones was fantastic in this. All the cast were bloody brilliant in this, and I have to stand by that. A fantastic story that I just look back on and go, wow, what a fantastic bit of television that was. Number 2, episode 1, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. You all know what's number 1 now, but let's just talk about Kiss Kiss Bang Bang very quickly. A fantastic way to start the series, as I mentioned in my reaction. John Hart was a fantastic character to be introduced to. Looking a little bit more into the time agency side of things, it was a very big, wacky, wide adventure that was actually pretty well done. You can see the increased budget, you can see the increased passion in the writing and the acting. It just felt so much better from Torchwood Series 1, because I did like Torchwood Series 1, but coming out of the other end of it, I was like, if all 4 series are like this, I'm going to have to stop watching, because it's just slow, and kind of like, I don't really have the passion to watch it, whereas this episode made me go, okay, Torchwood's great, I love this show now, and yeah, I think that was kind of where, it was a good start for Series 2, really, and I think I totally stand by that. Number 1, episode 13, Exit Wounds. I did let out a little bit of a tear, as I mentioned earlier, on my reaction to that. You can watch that on the channel now. Wow, what a story. It wasn't great, and I'll give it that. The reason this is number 1 is because of the emotional depth. Torchwood was always one of those things where it was like, it's just a Doctor Who spin-off. Doctor Who itself, the TV show, is something I've been watching for many, many years, and it has made me cry over the years. Mainly because I've been a child, mostly. You know, I was like, how old was I when David Tennant regenerated? I must have been like 8 years old. You know, I cried when Matt Smith regenerated. I was 12 at the time, but I've not cried since. Like, I didn't cry at Clara leaving. I didn't cry at Bill getting turned into a Cyberman, or Peter Capaldi regenerating, or anything, or Grace dying. You know, I didn't. Nothing in Doctor Who over the past few years since Matt Smith's regeneration in 2013 has actually made me tear up and get a little bit upset. And then Exit Wounds comes along and smashes me across the face with a big baseball bat made of emotion. Yeah, sad, very sad. I didn't love this episode. Obviously, I think the stuff with Grey was a bit odd. The guy who played Grey was a really weak actor, and it really shows when the rest of the team are like veteran and really, really good at what they do. One person doing a lukewarm job at acting for a character, it really does stick out like a sore thumb in a team like that. But Tosh's death was, oh, that was sad, and Owen's was really traumatizing as well, and them both being on the same line as each other was really, really tough, because, you know, I'm not the kind of person who goes around shipping TV show characters, but when you build up a relationship like that, you really start to love it, and you really start to enjoy it, and you really start to really want to see it go, and you're really anticipating something to happen. You're like, oh, they're going to kiss at the end of the series, or they're going to get together at the end of the series, and no, they both die at the end of the series before anything happens, and that was really sad. And yeah, that was horrible and traumatizing and evil Chris Gjemble. Chris Gjemble should be arrested. No, I didn't like this element of it, but obviously that's part of it. That's part of what a show is made for: emotion, depth, and the fact that it actually did get me to cry a little bit is a big step, and I really do appreciate that. And I kind of feel that that grants it its #1 spot. I never thought I'd get upset over Doctor Who again, and there we go. Something in the Doctor Who universe did manage to do it, and it was Chris Gjemble. So whenever Graham might die, I might be tearing like a little baby, but who knows, we'll see. Anyway, that is pretty much it for this video. I hope you have enjoyed it. If you did, do leave a like, comment below to let me know what your worst to best Torchwood list is. As we mentioned at the beginning, you can do your worst and just your best, or you can do your top 13, your top 5, your top 10, whatever you want to do. Just let me know in the comments. I'll happily read them. I'm interested to see what the people think. Subscribe with notifications on if you haven't already, because YouTube is a little bit of a mess. We've got a Patreon page if you want to support the channel, a Discord server if you want to talk about Torchwood and Doctor Who and all that sort of thing. And I think that's pretty much it. Social media links are all down in the description below, and I will see you very, very soon with Torchwood Series 3, Children of Earth. See you all later. Have a lovely day. Bye-bye.